Hi, I'm Jade.
Hi, I'm Brooke,
Hi, I'm Donnie.
and this is our student learning outcomes podcast for educational psychology.
All right, well, let's get into it. Our first outcome here is recognize the importance of diversity in individuals and communities to better understand students.
Yeah, so being a language arts teacher, I think that, especially because of books that I might be reading, which cover a wide range of topics, I think it's especially going to be important for me to be familiar with different cultures and groups of students and what that might imply for their home life, what that may imply for their socioeconomic status, what kind of resources to be available to them, what would be cut off. Also, that I can know what to expect realistically, not to downplay them in any way, but like, what might they struggle with? Where might they be more advantaged than other students, etc.
Yeah, that's a good point because, obviously the student's home life is going to, affect their learning and, just their sort of ecosystems that they're in. You know, like a socioeconomic status that can definitely affect how a student does, if they have the time to complete the assignments and all this other stuff.
What kind of home they're growing up in and like the community, because they could be from like a different neighborhood, from like the school environment. So say it's like a more poor home situation, and then they go to like a rich kid's school, then it's like they probably feel at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And like an outcast.
And also, kids from lower socioeconomic status typically don't have as much support at home.
Yeah.
And then if they're also like, for instance, immigrants from a different country, I mean, good luck with your homework, your language arts homework.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be very difficult.
And then also parenting styles also has a part to play in that because different people will have different parents who, parent in their own way.
That's a good point.
Which, bringing up like the immigrant thing, they might come from a place where like the, how parenting's different. Like they might have a more authoritarian style. When, the school that they're at might benefit more from an authoritative, where, they might have more of a say in what they do. Which that also does apply to the lower.
Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we can. The second one is recognize that all students can learn.
All right.
I mean, every student is. Sorry, I interrupted you. Every student is different. There can be like ones who are more on level, some who are above level, some who are below, some who need extra help, like IEPs, 504 plans, which is basically an IEP but in different form. Yeah, but I think every student is like, I think they want to learn and are somewhat motivated to learn. If it's not in one aspect, then it's in another, or like one style or another.
Yeah, I don't think any student goes into school thinking I want to like disappoint my teacher, or I want to like be kind of like an outcast. I think all the students like really want to like be academically successful, but then when it comes down to like maybe they don't have the correct learning strategies, maybe they don't believe that they can, and so they just cast off to the side and act like, oh, I don't want this, or I never wanted this.
Yeah, it could be like a self-esteem issue, or like
No self-efficacy.
Or something cognitive, like
or they straight just don't have the strategies.
Yeah.
And
like
that
emotional regulation, or just self-regulation as is,
or like learning strategies even.
Yeah, like, and I think that's a really important thing for schools to teach because, you know, I'm sure there's many kids out there that, you know, their parents aren't going to teach them how to really, you know, think like with a growth mindset, you know. And so, you know, I think even in a class where like you're not expected to do something like that, or like that's not the focus of what you're doing, I think still like, you know, showing kids how to, you know, learn how to learn and how to have self-efficacy and
You have to have those base principles before you can build on it.
Yeah.
Next.
explain major theories of human development in the context of teaching and learning.
So this includes cognitive, social, emotional, and development across the lifespan.
You know, that's a very big part in education, especially like considering like, you know, what stage you're at in life and like what grade you're teaching, because that's gonna change. Where like, you know, well, I mean, you're gonna be an art teacher, so you're gonna teach all levels. So you'll actually have the hardest part. You'll have to think of like, you know, like, you know, younger like elementary school students. You know, they'll be in that.
Pre-conventional or conventional?
I believe they're pre-operational.
Oh yeah. I always get them mixed up.
And middle school, right? Or high school?
I don't know, it's kind of up there.
What are you doing with your life?
Well, I don't know, but like, you know, middle school, they're definitely. Well, I think from middle school onwards, they're in that formal operational, because they're able to understand abstract ideas better, which actually I think elementary school students might, like the later ones.
Yeah, they have. It would be more of a struggle to begin with for the abstract theories. Like I would say, like second, third grade, it's like not quite clicking. But fourth, fifth grade, it would. They'd probably be better to have a better time understanding abstract theories.
Right, but they'd also probably
I think this is all like important, right? But I think it's important to understand like, of course, the theory, but also how is this going to be like, how is this going to be useful for our like, for the subjects that we're teaching, like for instance, language arts. This goes back to kind of like picking grade level like books. Like, of course, if I'm teaching like 12th grade English, I can't pick like a 7th grade book.
Because
Bring
that's you know, that's obviously the like constructivist thing, right? But then there's also just like the lifespan stuff. So like, you know, I think that's also important to keep in mind because of the like conflicts that students will be facing in that certain time. Like I know for my grade level, they'll be in that identity versus identity confusion stage of lifespan. So you know, that's something important to keep in mind because you know you understand like that's the one thing that students are trying to overcome. And you know, I'm not necessarily sure what it would be for YouTube, but that would be, you know, sort of my thing.
Yeah.
All right. So explain major theories of learning.
Cognitive, behavioral, and social. Alright. What are the learning theories?
So with we'll start with the behavioral learning. So, you know, this is probably the one that we're all most familiar with because it's kind of the most basic. Yeah, definitely cognitive is important, and then obviously social cognitive. That's also pretty important because
I feel like group work would be great with that. Like, I got to actually observe a lot of teachers this semester, but for the language arts teachers, and I guess the math too, they used group work a ton. But it was interesting. They didn't seem to group students based off of like their understanding of the subject or the text, which I thought was kind of interesting because I would assume that you would have like a few students who are like who grasp the material pretty well, and then and you would put those few students among different groups of like students who didn't grasp it as well. But instead, they opted for like seemingly a pure motivational perspective where they just grouped students based off of who wanted to work with who, and as long as the students didn't display any behavioral problems, they just focused purely on motivation.
Yeah, I think that has to do with a lot of classroom management, like setting down like ground rules of like what you expect to happen during group work, what you don't want to happen, and repercussions of what could happen if someone were to not follow the rules.
Yeah, and then they just basically say, as long as the work gets done, and if you don't understand something, then go ask. So even in the rubric, they're still emphasizing like more so the social cognitive approach than any other one.
Yeah,
as you said.
Okay. Explain effective learning strategies.
all right. So, I have done a lot of study strategies. I am not a good studier. I usually like go over my notes or I trace over my pencil lines in pen, and that does not help. So, for our recent super quiz, I took 4 different types of quizzes, and I feel like I retained more and was able to input that more with my quizzes that I took. And I'm hoping for a better grade this time, but I feel like I was able to better retain everything and then put it out into my like actual work. If that makes sense.
I don't know. I think the best way for me to learn is to actually like do and like apply the information.
You're talking like teaching, or just like
Well, just
I mean,
Study
like-
strategies.
no? I mean like teaching is a learning or studying strategy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I believe the textbook does talk about like if you can sort of or it might have been in the textbook or it might have just been something that I heard, but if you can actually like teach something yourself, then that'll help you get a better understanding of what you're talking about, which is kind of why I like this this class so much, because there's a lot of like ways that we can apply what we're learning, whether that be like case studies where we like examine a situation and we sort of give our professional input on it,
While also using terms from what we've learned.
and then also just class leadership, which is actually doing the teaching and using the information that we learned.
I think from this class, I've like, and from my observations in the classroom, like I'm definitely going to use review like maybe every single day with my students, just because this is the first semester that I've really realized, because of I think what Damro does, in that she has us like frequently review the material throughout the year. Like all the other classes I've taken, maybe I'm like overlooking something, but I think I can't remember at least any other one that actually had review in the class. Like they always just expected like, oh, we're on to the next course, we're on to the next chapter, and I'm just going to assume that you're like reviewing it at home. But
And that's like because of that.
yeah, especially because like I wasn't studying when I was in elementary school, middle school.
No,
What
I
the-
don't think you have those study strategies as an
No.
elementary schooler.
No, and so like they're just going through their entire course, and unless you are integrating what they've previously learned into another concept, they're just forgetting everything that they learned. Well, not
It's-
everything, but they're forgetting a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I want to interrupt. Do you think that either of you guys would use like having like kids lead class discussions or like teach other kids as like a learning strategy for your classrooms?
Oh yeah,
Like-
scaffolding would be good.
How would that work in art?
I don't think it would. I can't think of anything currently.
I would suppose, and I don't know anything really about art, so I might be, like, I'm out of my depth here, but I'd imagine like a way that a kid could lead a learning thing in the classroom would be maybe they like maybe you have a project where you're like painting or like recreating paintings,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a student could go up to the front and sort of explain the process of how they the steps they took to recreate a painting or something like that.
Oh yeah, or like critique. I think critique is a good one where like maybe in the middle of a project we go around the room and a student can like critique on somebody, not in a negative way, but be like, oh, you could add some shading here, some work on your shadows, or like cite the lines more because it looks a little wonky. Like lines can get very difficult.
So you'd have students giving feedback to like summative assessments then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Explain the major areas of motivation.
Okay.
Sick. I mean, this is such a okay.
I'm totally not looking at my notes.
In terms of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I from my observations, I've heard time and time again that developing good relationships with your kids, or like showing them that you like actually care about them as human beings in some way,
Yeah.
is essential, and it's like apparently the number one thing to do. But interestingly, I think that meets that obviously meets like a social need, especially for kids who are disadvantaged,
Yeah.
who come from like a low socioeconomic status, which is interesting because the teacher who most harped on that, who did that, has seen the most improvement in her lowest achieving students in their standardized test scores. Which is like, I don't know that I would like necessarily expect that because they're low achieving to begin with. So I think like, oh, they're just continue to be low achieving. But actually, from what she told me, it sounds like from Maslow's hierarchy perspective again, meaning like their social needs
Mm-hmm.
probably also help their confidence in some way.
Yeah.
And then that like put them into a position to like self-actualize through developing maybe like more mastery over the subject.
I mean, getting a connection with your students is very big. Like, I agree with you. I had, when I worked at the Y Care again, I had some of the quiet girls who would barely speak, like, in general. So I would, like, sit down with them and we do, like, a little circle time, do, like, a little book if they wanted to. And it'd just be, like, a little girl group with me and the girls. And the boys would just they went out with my other counselor and they would play sports, and I gave them the option. Like, there was always an option to like, hey, you can stay inside and we can do indoor play for a little bit and we can read a book and then we'll go outside and we'll play. But the boys always wanted to go outside. But building that connection, like when I would come into camp every day, kids would run up to me and I get tackled with hugs and, Miss Brooke, how are you doing? Miss Brooke, I missed you. So I know those like,
So you got like a social need.
yeah, oh my gosh, they're adorable. But yeah, I think that motivated them to come to camp, but it also motivated me to like actually get up and go and like want to be a part of like camp life.
Yeah. And I kind of like your point too. Like, you gave them the option
Mm-hmm.
to like do their preferred method.
Mhm.
It's just like the boys tend to rather go outside than the girls would choose to stay in. But which obviously it's a sweet thing and it builds connections. But I think that does kind of show the like that gender like stereotype thing with like the boys wanting to go out and be active and physical while the girls rather be inside and
Yeah,
but,
they're more the crafty type. But we always did end up going outside after like I want to say 25 minutes.
right. And again, that's why I say it's good that you provide the option because sort of breaking down those like hey, the girls can go out and play or the boys can stay and be crafty.
Yeah, because they each have different motivations, so you're reaching each of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then along with that, with what you were saying about like the connections helping like lower achieving students like start to achieve. I think that kind of goes back to the like idea that every student can learn because like having that belief and confidence in someone despite their previous like shortcomings is definitely a very good motivator to actually try. And then another important thing about motivation, I think, is the attribution theory, which goes into like why how
students perform a certain way.
like how we attribute our successes and whatnot, which I think is important because which I think could even go back to like
It would definitely help I think it would help to have like students literally like fill out a form stating like why they think that they performed a certain way like on a test, because I think especially for kids it's kind of like a lot of them like don't care about school to begin with, but two, they kind of just chalk it up to like
Like just cause.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yeah, they don't give a reason for it. They're like, oh, it's just the sun has always been there. What do you mean, why is the sun there? You know, it's like they have like this kind of.
You have to have a deeper thought process on it.
Yeah, they have to literally think about what happened, like what realistically caused me to perform this way, either good or bad on a test. And I don't think kids do that, so they're missing out on like a lot of
Deeper comprehension.
Yeah, a lot of like opportunities to, well, one, develop better study strategies, two, understand themselves better, like what motivates them, why didn't they perform well, maybe they don't like the teacher, maybe they weren't interested in the topic to begin with, etc.
Kind of using metacognition, sort of thinking about, which that's definitely a way to sort of help motivate students. If they're like intrinsically motivated, then they'll be more likely to think, oh, why did I do the way I did on this assignment, and deeper learning will be had, which I think is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and if they understand what caused them to perform a certain way, then they'll be more likely to actually take responsibility for their behaviors and then perform, and then take necessary steps to perform better on another assignment.
Yeah, I think having the students take more responsibility in themselves and how they prepare is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good whole strategy to put in themselves for their whole future, because responsibility is a big thing.
And it helps them identify like what they should probably do with their life. If they're finding like a pattern like, oh, I'm actually motivated to do this stuff, maybe you should go down a career that emphasizes that.
All right. Explain principles of classroom management.
I did my whole research paper on classroom management.
Let's go, bro.
So classroom management, I have a weird way of explaining things. So I usually skip over main big terms and just focus on small things. But so classroom management is the baseline for how you want your whole I would say a whole semester to go, or your whole classroom as is to go. If you don't set up your ground rules, your expectations, and have those set, then your kids are gonna run amok. They're gonna do whatever they want. There's gonna be you have to have your ground rules and the repercussions for if something's broken. Like if someone were to do something that's against the rules, there needs to be a repercussion, and then like steps on, goodness, like the steps you'll take, if that behavior persists or if that behavior improves.
Understand the basic interrelationships and interactions between planning, instruction, and assessment.
So planning, so I think that has to do with like planning what you're going to do for the day, what you're going to do for the week, like what the basic things you need to teach, and like how you go about setting that up. So like your pre-planning, introductions, and then like how have the kids learned by the end of the day, and what do we need to review upon and then continue on for the rest of that week until we move on to a different topic. So like gauge, so that would be assessment, like gauge their understanding.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely all like, you know, they're all kind of like related to each other, and one will affect the other two.
Yeah, because I mean, like, even if you look at this just from the actual definition of like the literal words, like what you plan, you plan what you're going to teach, and then you grade based off how, or you assess based off how closely their understanding is to the one that you have as the criteria.
Were expectations met? Were they almost there, or were they missed completely? And then you as a teacher have to go back and be like, okay, how could I have explained this better? And then if the whole group, like if the group majority is not getting the like overall of it, maybe have a student that understands it come up and explain it in their way, or you as the teacher have to break it down more and explain it in a way that's easier to like understand as a concept.
Yeah, that was one thing that like the teacher that I observed talked about. She was like, so when she went to a different grade level, she left everything that she used to teach that grade level for the previous teacher, but that teacher has since not been able to get even closely to the same, the same standardized test scores. And she said, yeah, I know, bummer. But she said that students have told her that teacher, when they go up to her and ask her a question, she just repeats the question back to them.
That's not helpful.
Yeah. You need to break it down if they don't understand, like, as in, if they don't understand this surface level or like quote unquote deep question, you need to go a step beneath that.
You gotta break it down.
Yeah, and examine the parts that lead up to it, because if they don't understand this question that's built upon many different concepts, or you could say parts, then you need to examine the parts.
Yeah, like there's a certain level of scaffolding, I guess, that would go into it. Like, you know, because obviously if you know nothing, you're gonna have to like really like drill it into them. But then like, you know, they understand it more. They don't really understand. Maybe like be a little bit more, like elaborate a little bit more. But then like you know that they have it in them to like do it, so you don't want to give too much.
Alright, are we ready for the last one?
Yeah. Alright. Apply teaching strategies and approaches that address the ways individual students learn.
Alright, I think I did this with my teach the class stuff. So you guys have not used Posca markers before. So I think I did well with showing you how to use them. Like you have to shake it up first, or like if you're someone who reads, the directions are on the side. You shake it up, you press the nub down until the paint comes out, and then boom, you're done.
So you were taking into account like, oh, these people have literally zero understanding of a very important element. So I have to like first explain this element to them before I can just go on to like what I want to teach. Like and maybe this is like similar to how, let's say if you go to like calculus in college, but your algebra just sucks for whatever reason.
Me.
So instead of just trying to like, instead of like ignoring that their conceptual understanding of the elements that go into calculus are weak, i.e. being algebra and just pushing on to straight towards teaching them calculus, you'd have to take a step back and actually teach them first algebra or whatever. Yeah, just trigonometry too.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, can I say something? And I have a correlation to this.
Okay.
So, I took 2 sewing classes in high school. So this is probably gonna make no sense to you guys. So, when you're using a sewing machine, you have to like follow these certain steps, or else your thing's not gonna get put together. So if you were like, you don't go back over the end of it so it doesn't like tie together, then once you go through the whole entire piece of fabric, you like sew 2 things together. If you don't have it closed on either end, your thread's gonna pull right out. So if you don't like, if somebody gets right up to some point, and then at one point they have that hole, and then you just keep going, they're not gonna get the rest of that because that hole is still there.
So that's like that's to say, like, if you ignore a hole, it won't be taken care of on its own. And a good way to achieve that is to use formative assessments throughout your teaching.
And I think the individual like variation thing is definitely a very important thing to keep in mind because I don't know. I mean, I think it just kind of it affects everything really. Like
Yeah, and your teaching style. Maybe if it emphasizes like a specific cognitive approach, might not be that well for students who just kind of suck at understanding from that perspective.
Right.
Like for instance, you've heard like the visual learner, auditory learner.
Apparently,
That's
none of those matter. I've read something where it's like none of those actually matter. Kids can learn anyway, and it's like I don't think so because I'm a very visual person. Like I need to have everything laid out in front of me, and I need a demonstration in order to actually like get it into my head.
Yeah,
If you just tell me to do something, it's gonna be like, well, should I do it with my left hand or my right hand? Should I start this way or that way? Like I don't know how to go around it. I need a spot to begin at before I can advance into this is where it's going.
Yeah, and then there's also like practice, like and that's also the same reason why I think assessments need to be taken from multiple different angles, that you don't so that the grades are reflective, or one, culturally fair, and two, just assessing your understanding from multiple different angles.
All right.
I think
Do we
that's
think
it.
that's good?
I believe so.
All right.